This is where the former apartheid regime secretly built nuclear weapons. In the 1990s, South Africa chose to disarm. The bombs were dismantled.
Delivering the OR Tambo lecture in Kagiso, the president said that the Western countries do not want South Africa to have any knowledge of working with nuclear. He stressed that when people try and hinder South Africa's nuclear ambitions, they end up supporting the wrong forces.
Amazwe asentshonalanga agcina ngokuthi njengeka sinike usizo azonda iANC ngoba ethi isebenza namakomanisi uma sesibuya sesiqala ukunegotiate bathi lamazwe asentshonalanga hey nine nuclear nina nezikhali ezenungu sibulaleni ngoba akufanele ukuthi lamakomanisi uma sephethizwe abe nalamandla ukuze bangalithola ulwazi lokusebenza inuclear.
South Africa's nuclear policy advisor gave us his government's answer.
Why should we get rid of it when others don't?
Pelindaba was once the place where South Africa's atomic bombs of the 1970s were developed, constructed and stored. President Zuma visited the facility to reaffirm his commitment to nuclear development.
A question would linger.
Building nuclear weapons, South Africa, it's doing it again. What?
Also, something that is now also coming out in discussions and research is the role that the ANC played in the ANC, because we know today that they were pro-nuclear faction in the ANC as well.
It's a silent war in the process of the balance of forces.
We are entering one of the most dangerous periods in nuclear history. We're on the cusp of this third age, that nuclear is back.
Chaos and tragedy looms.
I don't have to tell you, but we are living in unprecedented and dangerous times.
And today, in broad daylight, the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran.
U.S. and Israel's war on Iran has reignited fears of a nuclear disaster.
Basically, before the bomb was invented, the fundamental purpose of military establishments was to plan for, fight, and win wars, and now it would be to prevent them altogether. Most other countries that has nuclear weapons fundamentally relies on them to assure the existence of their country. You have nuclear weapons and they're survivable, your country's probably not going to be wiped off the map or be invaded.
We're going to be asking the following question. Why did South Africa give up nuclear weapons?
At one point, South Africa had nuclear weapons, not plans, not ambitions, not theories. 6 fully built nuclear bombs, hidden, armed, ready. And then they were all destroyed. No war forced it. No enemy demanded it. Just a decision. But here's where it gets strange. Because the deeper you look into that decision, the less it makes sense. And it raises a question almost no one is asking. What if they weren't all destroyed? In 1991, South Africa did something no other country has ever done. It built nuclear weapons and then gave them up. Today, countries like North Korea keep theirs, and the world fears them. Countries like Israel are believed to have them and face no consequences, and the world's most powerful nations still keep thousands. So the question is, did South Africa give up power in a world that only respects power? Did South Africa make the biggest strategic mistake in its history, or is there something else to it? In the midst of the Cold War, South Africa was isolated, sanctioned, pressured, surrounded by uncertainty, but behind closed doors, it was building something the world couldn't see. 6 nuclear weapons, quietly assembled, completely secret. Under the leadership of F.W. de Klerk, the government feared one thing above all, losing control. Regional wars were escalating, foreign powers were circling, and to the apartheid regime, nuclear weapons weren't just defense, they were insurance. Because in a world on the brink, the only real guarantee of survival was power.
It was only natural that we should enter the field of nuclear power, bearing in mind that we are a major producer of uranium.
And then everything changed. As apartheid began to fall, South Africa stood at a crossroads: keep the weapons or destroy them. Before democracy arrived, before Nelson Mandela took office, the decision had already been made. The nukes would be dismantled. South Africa became the first and only country in history to voluntarily give up nuclear weapons. It signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and opened itself to inspections by the International Atomic Energy Agency.
Which meant that now the books have to be opened and the facilities have to be inspected. So when the IAEA team came out the first time, they were unhappy that the books did not balance. And they asked the South African government to go back because there were some unaccounted for devices, uranium, etc. So it was only by 1993 that the IAEA said, look, we are now sufficiently happy that the program has been dismantled, the equipment, the bombs, the devices have been dismantled, and some of the facilities have been rendered not being able to use anymore.
To the world, it was a moral victory. But morality and power don't always move in the same direction.
Unfortunately, you can't uninvent the technology, and actually, sudden disarmament would put you in a much more dangerous position where any country could suddenly leap into a position of massive power by just committing to building lots and lots of nuclear warheads.
Because while South Africa was giving up its weapons, the rest of the world wasn't. Under global agreements, only a handful of nations are officially allowed to possess nuclear weapons: United States, Russia, China, United Kingdom, France, Pakistan. Not because they are more responsible, but because they got them first. Meanwhile, Israel is widely believed to have nuclear weapons, yet faces no global punishment. Iran is sanctioned for even pursuing them. North Korea built them anyway and became untouchable. Russia uses its nuclear arsenal as a shield, ensuring no one can challenge it directly. China expands its power quietly, reshaping global influence without firing a shot. This isn't about rules. It never was. It's about power. Who has it and who is allowed to keep it?
We want to say to Captain Ibrahim Traore that we stand with him and support his vision for the Sahel region and the whole of African continent, including the expulsion of French colonialism. We say to our brother Duma Boko in Botswana that will heed his call for the unity behind the rallying cry for our land and minerals to return. We call upon him to also remove the American base in America. We have no land that can be shared with America, especially in Southern Africa. And that government is progressive. Let us remove the army base of America in Botswana. The face and future of Africa is economic freedom. And that economic freedom will be launched from the southern tip of Africa.
So what if South Africa never gave them up?
Now, Belgium has joined South Africa and several other countries in a case brought before the International Court of Justice, which accuses Israel of committing genocide in the Gaza Strip.
Guys.
Political power. It would be one of the most powerful nations in the global south. Its voice inside the United Nations would carry weight no African country has ever had.
Chairperson of the African Union and President of the Republic of South Africa. Mr. President, Africa is facing several challenges to improve the well-being of its population, in particular, within the framework of the implementation of African Union's Agenda 2063, challenges that require significant mobilization of resources. What financing solutions can you propose to us today?
Well, African influence within the African Union. South Africa could lead or dominate, but power creates fear, and fear creates distance.
Throughout history, the United States has employed military and covert operations to either topple or support foreign governments, all in the pursuit of safeguarding American strategic and business interests.
For over a century, the West controlled Africa's most valuable resources. They extracted copper, cobalt, lithium, gold, uranium, and rare earths for pennies while building trillion-dollar industries back home.
Economic leverage. Africa holds the minerals the world depends on: gold, platinum, rare earth elements. Now imagine negotiating those resources backed by nuclear power. The balance of power would shift.
Conflict. In northern Mali, the country is divided de facto into two. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, 120 armed groups, yet it is the busiest airspace in the continent of Africa. Minerals are being taken away to Europe and America. Central African Republic, the same. Libya, the same. Several months ago, I wrote to the chair of the African Union and to all African heads of state and said, convene a meeting with only one agenda item. What can we do to save Africa from this slide? Only 4 replied.
But power isn't just about weapons. Africa is one of the richest continents on earth, yet remains one of the most exploited, not because it lacks resources, but because it lacks unity. Borders divide, politics divide, interests divide, and in that division, others find opportunity.
The greatest terror caused in our country is often by elites in the bureaucracy in government who get into cahoots with foreign interests and are willing to sell their children, great-grandchildren, and grandmothers in exchange for expensive cars, for investments overseas, for little shiny trinket, never factories that produce, never productive economy sectors, but trinkets that distinguish them as natives who did not transcend into understanding economy. And we, faced with this moment, critical moment of leadership, are asked to decide what is important, and what is important is better cars, better buildings.
Africa doesn't lack power. It lacks alignment. It lacks righteous leaders. It lacks selfless leaders.
Was it right or legal to drop the bomb? This question seems to have been brushed aside.
At 8:15 a.m. on the 6th of August 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, it bombed the southern city of Nagasaki. It's the only time in history that nuclear weapons have ever been used in warfare.
And unfortunately, half of this community just says, we need to get rid of all nuclear weapons tomorrow! Ah! And the other half says, no, we need nuclear weapons for everything, including stopping asteroids. Ah! We need everyone to take a deep breath and think strategically and think in the longer term.
But there's a darker truth. Nuclear weapons don't just protect nations. They destroy humanity in seconds. So the real question isn't just strategic, it's moral. Is any country meant to hold that kind of power?
Israel's getting hit harder than they've ever been hit before in their history, and we're only 2 weeks into this. If this war continues for weeks or months, then Israel could just be destroyed, or very large parts of it. And then you have to worry about Israel escalating the war by contemplating using a nuclear weapon, which would truly be catastrophic.
Now, with conflicts being fought across the world, talk about escalation and the threat of a new nuclear arms race is becoming louder.
We start with some breaking news this morning. The U.S. has launched airstrikes on Iran. The United States, working with Israel, has launched a major attack on Iran. It marks the second time in just 8 months that the Trump administration has used military force against the Islamic Republic.
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Оставляем за собой право
применить ядерное оружие в случае агрессии против России и Беларуси.
Today, the world feels closer to conflict than ever. Iran continues its nuclear ambitions. Israel remains silent but powerful. And the United States continues to shape the global order. The truth is simple. The world isn't anti-nuclear. It's anti who controls nuclear power.
Time and again, America's enemies have learned that if you threaten the American people, our soldiers are coming for you. Your defeat will be certain. Your demise will be final.
South Africa gave up nuclear weapons and gained moral authority. But in a world that respects power more than morality, was that a victory or a surrender?